Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for viewing or calling into our East Garden Grove Wintersburg Channel Improvement Project in Huntington Beach. My name is Shannon Weedor. I'm with Orange County Public Works, and I want to thank you for attending tonight. Here are your presenters tonight. We go through presenters and some guidelines. We have Justin Gallagher with our project management, helping oversee the development and construction of this project. And again, I'm Shannon Weedor, Communications for Orange County Public Works. And also joining us as participating key staff, we have Melissa Pasa of our Project Management Group and Teddy Kamazarian of our Construction Management Group. So for some guidelines for today's meeting, we're going to go through some various slides, talk about the overall project, the benefits, the purpose and need of it, the timing. And just so you know, those who have called in or viewing the presentation online, your lines are muted, and that is to avoid any disruption out of respect for others and to avoid folks talking over each other. And then when we get to the question and answer period at the end of the presentation, if you raise a hand, if you want to provide comments or ask a question, and you raise a hand virtually speaking, we will call on individuals one at a time to ask a question or provide comments. And we will unmute each individual individually, and you'll have a chance to speak. So we will control that towards the end of the presentation. And we just want to say, please be respectful of everyone's viewpoints and comments. I know a lot of times when we do these meetings, we hear a lot of good ideas and a lot of good comments, and some folks may have varying opinions. So we just please ask that everyone be respectful of their opinions. Here's a look at where we are today. We're going to go through the project purpose and description, high level, as we get ready for construction next month. We're going to talk about the work schedule and then what to expect during construction, what you will see out there in the community along this section of the East Garden Grove Wintersburg flood channel as we work towards these improvements. And again, near the end, we're going to open it up for questions and answers, because this is equally important to us, is to give you out in the community an opportunity to speak with us, and we want to hear your thoughts, questions, comments as we get ready to mobilize for construction of these improvements. We want to hear from you as well tonight. So how you can provide comments or ask a question, there's various ways. And it probably depends on the platform you signed in. One of all, first, you could type your question in the Q&A box. If you look to the right side, you'll see a small Q&A box. You could submit comments or questions by typing that in there. Or you could raise your hand virtually. Depending on how you signed in, if you use the WebEx platform or if you're using another just internet browser to sign into the meeting, you may say two things. If you see the small icon with 3 dots, you look at it in the middle of the screen there, click on that, you'll see a raise hand option. You can click on that. Or you can see a participants box. If you open or expand that, you may see a small right hand in the bottom right corner of the screen. So you should see one of those two options, either a raised hand option by clicking the 3 dots, or a small right hand in the bottom right corner of the screen. Use one of those options. Or if you're one of those who simply called in to listen, you're not viewing the presentation, but you're simply listening via phone, you can dial *3. And that, in essence, will raise your hand. Any of those options you're seeing on the screen here, you can raise your hand at any time. And then when we get to the Q&A portion near the end of the presentation, we will see and call on each individually and unmute you so you can provide comments or ask a question at that time. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Justin Gallagher, and he's going to talk about the project purpose and description.
Hey guys, good evening. I'm Justin. You may recognize my voice or my name. A couple years ago, back in 2018, I was out with the with the Army Corps of Engineers. We were presenting on the Westminster Watershed study. So I was going to kick things off by providing you guys an update with that, since this project is an element of the Westminster Watershed study. Quick recap for those that did not attend those public meetings back in 2018. It's a study that is a partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers to investigate flood risk management within what we call the SEISMIC water system, which is also the Westminster Watershed. Specifically, the channels we investigated were Bolsa Channel, Westminster Channel, East Garden Grove, Wintersburg Channel, and then Ocean View Channel. And the East Garden Grove, Wintersburg Channel is the largest remaining floodplain in Orange County since we've completed substantial completion of the Santa Ana River project. So, big news on the Westminster watershed side of things. The chief's report was signed at the beginning of July, it was July 9th, and then actually yesterday, we have on the slide here that it was included in the Water Resources Development Act, and yesterday the House of Representatives actually voted and approved the WRDA, Water Resources Development Act, is also known as WRDA if you hear either of those two. So that was approved, and it's going to be moving on to the Senate. So that's really good news from the study perspective and trying to get a future federal project that we at the county would be partnering with the Army Corps to implement. So the other element of this is that this particular project is a piece of that future federal project. And so we're able to construct this project now, and then we're going to be able to apply that towards credit with the Army Corps of Engineers once the full federal project is authorized and then funds are appropriated to it. So moving into the goal of the Orange County Flood Control District and Orange County Public Works on behalf of the Flood Control District, our goal is to remove people from the floodplain. We want to provide flood protection, and that's our goal throughout the county. And in this particular area, there's 4 major projects we need to complete in addition to the one that we're describing tonight. I know when we get to the question and answer period, probably the first question would be, hey, I live in this area, I live right next to the channel, I'm currently paying flood insurance. When am I going to be able to stop paying flood insurance? So to get to the bottom line up front, I wanted to address that with this slide. So there's 4 projects in addition to the one we're describing. We're here to talk about the project that's in the red box, but there's 4 other elements we need to do. One is Warner Bridge at Huntington Harbor. It's a hydraulic constriction that is causing us problems from a flood protection standpoint. So that project we're going to be looking into. Some of you may remember we completed a project on this channel back in 2015, and we need to come back and complete this element from the tide gates to what would be the extension of Bates Circle. That's shown as number 2 there. The third element is that after we complete the channel improvements from Warner here, then there's 3 bridges, Warner, Springdale, and Edwards, and we're looking at the necessary improvements that those bridges are going to need to accommodate the flood protection needs in the area. And then the final project is from the confluence with with Ocean View Channel up to Woodruff. And once we complete all 5 of these projects, then we'll have full protection from the freeway all the way out to the ocean. And at that point, we'll be able to accomplish our floodplain remapping, and that's where we'll work with FEMA. And then once it gets remapped, we'd be able to, you'd be able to stop paying your flood insurance. On that note, I would mention that I would still highly recommend carrying flood insurance. There's something called a preferred rate. That's where you're not obligated to have flood insurance. Me, myself personally, I live next to a flood control channel, and I'm not within the floodplain. However, I do still carry that flood insurance because floods do happen. So moving on to the specific project, we'll get a little more detail now, so we're honing in. The project location, it starts at the upstream side of Warner, right where we left off on the previous project. And it extends to about 1,200 feet downstream of Golden West. That's right near Diane Lane. If Diane Lane extended across the channel, that's the upstream limit. Right now there's an existing transition structure where the channel transitions from a concrete channel to the earthen channel, and that's our upstream limit. You can see that in the inset there on the right. So the project purpose is flood protection and seismic resiliency. So this project lies near the Newport-Inglewood Fault. And you can see on this map where the faults are roughly indicated. That green dashed line that crosses the channel not too far downstream from our project is the one we're primarily concerned with when it comes to seismic design of the project. So this is a levee. Levees hold storm waters within the channel, and they also hold tidal waters within the channel. So seismic resilience is a big deal when it comes to levee protection, and that's why it's an element of the project. The other major element, obviously, is the flood protection. Everybody on the line, I imagine, is either a resident that's very close to the channel, and you guys have definitely seen the storm events that produce conditions like we're showing in these photos. The channel carries a lot of water, and it can get really high. And so this photo back from 2017, I think, illustrates that a lot. We often get phone calls from the public regarding the flood protection here, and so I think this photo pretty much demonstrates the need for the project. Aside from the capacity issues within the channel that we're addressing, there's also what we call local drainage problems. These are on the backside of the levee. We'll get ponding that occurs, and so that's a problem we're looking to address within the project itself as well. So moving on to flooding, this is a map straight from the Army Corps' study. Through their hydraulic modeling, they completed two-dimensional hydraulic modeling that predicts where they anticipate flooding would occur. There's a legend there. If you really want to dive into it, we're talking about from a quote-unquote 25-year event all the way up to a 500-year event is what was analyzed. That's what the different colors are in the floodplain. So the goal of the study and the goal of this project is to make all these blue, orange, yellow floodplains that are indicated to go away. So that's the goal. And I just wanted to show it on a larger scale how big a flood risk this channel is. The project consists of basically 5 major elements, and then over the next slides, we'll go through each of those elements. So the first element is that we're installing a dual row of steel sheet piles. This is very similar to what was installed downstream of Warner. If you live in the area, lots of people actually use the channel to walk out to the Bolsa Chica wetlands area. This project is going to be very, very similar to what was installed downstream. So on the left side, you see the existing condition today. The red lines indicate the approximate alignment of the future sheet piles. And then the right side photo shows the 2 rows of sheet piles installed. And then through that, we're able to widen the channel, and then we're able to strengthen the levees. The next major element is what we call soil improvements. So this deals with the seismic resiliency. And so we're doing something that's called deep soil mixing. And what happens is if you look at the inset photo on the left side of the screen, you can see some gray columns. And so deep soil mixing, we have some photos of this later, but effectively what it is we take a giant egg beater and it spins and it drives itself into the ground and it mixes the soil up. And so as it mixes that soil up, you get a more uniform soil column. And then as we're mixing that soil, we also inject cement. And so the cement strengthens the soil. And so through that strengthening of the soil and the mixing of it all up together, you really produce a really strong soil. It effectively just becomes a really strong soil wall. And then we have these sheet piles that are on either side of it that are non-erodible faces. And then the combination of all these things together is how we get our seismic resiliency. So After those two elements are done, then we're looking to increase the channel capacity or increase the amount of water that can travel down the channel, and we can get it out into the ocean. So what happens is we install the sheet piles, we do the soil mixing. Once all of those improvements are complete, then we can come back and we're removing the channel sides, or what we call the soil wedge. And so again, if you look on the left side, you'll see the existing levee, and then on the right side, we excavate out about half of it because the channel gets widened. So landside drainage improvements, this can't really be seen all that well in this photograph, but you know, in the field, you're not really going to be able to see it either because it's mostly going to be below ground. And so what happens is there's the existing soil, there's some level of infiltration that can take place with it, but it's overwhelmed reasonably easily. What we do with this landside drainage improvements is we're going to be installing underground storage chambers. We're going to be installing pervious material. And so what that does is we're going to provide capacity to store stormwater below grade. We're going to be installing some concrete curb, basically is the way to think about it, at the property line. And so through the combination of the storage and then the curb, that's going to contain a like a typical storm within the channel right away, and then there'll be overflows. If the water starts getting to be too much, then there'll be overflows that direct it into the channel. And so that should alleviate the problems that we showed earlier, where we're not going to have that ponding that's overflowing into the adjacent property nearly as much. Then the final element is operations and maintenance. It doesn't really do us a lot of good if we build this big, beautiful flood control feature and then we can't properly maintain it. So again, this is a bit of a nuance, but effectively what happens is we're installing our maintenance roads at the correct width. We're ensuring that we have the adequate horizontal distances so that we can get out there with our heavy equipment, and our operations and maintenance service area can maintain and inspect the channels properly. So this is a rendering that was provided by the project team. The left side is what we have today. It should look pretty familiar. And then the right side is hopefully what it looks like at the end of the day. It should look pretty close to that. This is another rendering. This is of Edwards Street. Again, the left side is existing, and then the right side is what it'll look like post-construction. So diving into project schedule, how long it's going to take, let you guys know kind of what to expect. So project schedule, we awarded this as a design build contract. It's actually our first design build contract on the horizontal side that Public Works has done, which is pretty exciting for us. We did that back in November, and then we're here before you today for our pre-construction community meeting, and we're going to be kicking off our first phase of construction here in August. Construction is slated to extend until spring of 2022. I will caveat that in saying that it's a sequential construction, and so I'll provide more details on that in a little bit, but it's not going to be every element of the project under construction for 2 years. It'll kind of cycle through. Then we'll have some project closeout, and we're looking to finish up everything with the project in the summer of 2022. Working hours, the days, duration, et cetera. So we'll have standard working days of Monday through Friday. We do have the option to work on Saturdays if needed. Ideally, we won't need that. Where we would use Saturdays is if we need to expedite the project. That's where we'd be looking to do some work on Saturdays. We'll avoid that as much as possible. Working hours is 7 to 7. However, the primary working hours, like when there would be a lot of noise, a lot of activity, that's going to be more or less between 8 and 6. You know, starting at 7, it's going to be getting the site mobilized, or getting the crews mobilized on site, getting everything set up for the day, and then the last hour or couple hours of work is set up for cleaning up the job site and buttoning it up for the evening. The duration, as I mentioned in the previous slide, is August of this year until 2022. And then, of course, depending on weather and other factors, you know, that schedule is going to be adjusted. But that's our target, and we feel pretty confident in the durations that we have in the construction contract, and we have a really good partner in JF Shea that's the contractor, and so we feel reasonably good with this construction schedule. So speaking of construction sequencing, if you're calling in, that means that, one, someone that is interested in the project knows that you're interested in it and they shared the link with you, or you received our mailer in the mail. Either way is great, but that also means that you're in close vicinity to the channel. And so this is the sequencing that we're planning as far as implementing the project. We're going to start in this on the south side there in between Springdale and Edwards. We're going to move towards the east side of Edwards on that south side, and then we'll flip-flop to the north side of the channel and work our way back towards Springdale. And then we'll finish up in the two segments there between Warner and Springdale. So talking about sequencing, the way I like to describe this to the public is it's kind of like a train. The first elements that'll get installed is the sheet pile. Once the sheet pile gets far enough out in front, then we'll start with the soil mixing operations. And then as the soil mixing operations are complete, we'll be following through with the other items, which is things like sheet pile cap, fencing, the drainage system, et cetera. So there's going to be different levels of construction taking place, and it's all just going to be kind of a train as it moves from one segment to the next segment, chasing its tail around the project site. So what you should expect being in the area and during construction. We'll walk through the equipment that's used for these major elements. So probably the most visible and the most interesting from my standpoint is the installation of the sheet pile. That takes place through really not that much equipment, which is impressive. Once there's haul trucks that bring the sheet pile to the site and we get it staged up within the project limits, then there's a machine that we're calling a Geekin machine. That's a brand name, and what it is a hydraulic press. And they install these sheet piles. So in the past, you would be familiar with something called a vibratory hammer, which is shown on the right side of the screen there. A lot of times, back in the olden days, I'll say, we had to vibrate these sheet piles in. And then a company invented this machine that's called the Geekin machine, and what it does is it grips the sheet piles and then just pushes them into the ground with no vibration or anything. In order to do that, we need some equipment that helps out. So left side of the screen, you see there's a power pack. That's what produces the energy for the Geekin machine for it to drive in the sheet piles. These things are super, super quiet. When you're in the field next to one of these things, actually the loudest thing on the field is the crane and the power pack. They're much louder than the Geekin machine itself. And I think people have been around cranes and excavators in the past, so you should have a reasonable idea of what those sound like. But it's actually called a silent piler because they're so quiet. The crawler crane has two purposes. One is, and its primary purpose is for feeding sheet piles to the Geekin. There's going to be some sort of mini excavator usually is necessary to do minor kind of earthwork so that the Geekin can inchworm its way along the sheet pile alignment. The way that works is that it grips the sheet piles. If you look closely on the Geekin, there's 4 little feet on the bottom of it. And those grip the 4 previously installed sheet pile, and then it pushes the 5th pair in the ground. So in order to get that machine started, we actually have to use a vibratory hammer because the Geekin needs something to grab onto so that it can push the first one in. So while the Geekin itself is no vibration and very quiet, in order to get it going, we will have to use a vibratory hammer to get the first couple pairs installed. Once we've done that, then the Geekin will be able to move along, and we'll use the crane to feed the new sheet piles. The soil improvements, these deep soil mix columns, this is that egg beater that I was describing previously. So there's a big auger, it spins around, it drills down into the ground, and then as it's drilling down in it, it injects the cement, which you can see in this photo. So then, as I mentioned, all that work gets completed, then it's time to do excavation and increase the channel size. So we'll do that with just conventional equipment. There'll be excavators, there'll be haul trucks, there'll be some bulldozers to push material around within the channel, but that's pretty straightforward. We'll just dig it out, put it in a truck, and haul it away. Other things to expect during construction, we're gonna have dust and noise monitoring and migration mitigation. We'll be regularly watering the site to control dust. We're going to be installing sound walls around the deep soil mixing equipment so that we can make that as quiet as possible. Wherever we have a sensitive area, we'll be able to install these sound walls. And then a big element is that the equipment that we're using is quieter than what is standard. Luckily, we all live in California, and California has pretty strict regulations when it comes to the equipment that we use. And so that's a benefit for all of us, I think. Other things that we need to do, we'll be doing environmental monitoring. We have some pre-construction surveys that we'll be accomplishing. We'll be surveying for eelgrass, even invasive species we need to remove as part of our regulatory permits. We'll also be looking for protected species to make sure we don't impact any of that. Another element that you'll be notified about is the properties that live adjacent to the channel itself. We're going to have a pre-construction survey team that'll come out, so expect a notification within the next month or so. They'll come out. If you would like, we can have them survey your property, take photos of everything. That way we can document if there's any kind of damage that takes place from construction. We'll have that all documented so that you know, if there's something that we do that impacts you guys, we'll be able to correct that. And the way we do that is through these pre-construction surveys. We'll be doing water quality monitoring, the biological monitoring during the bird nesting season. Those are all big items with us. Another major element is the overhead power lines. Some of these power lines we're going to be able to move ahead of time so that they won't be in the way of our cranes when we're swinging around these sheet piles. That work is being accomplished by SE ahead of time. You shouldn't experience any power interruptions. SE's told us that they expect to get this all done with little to no outages. If they do have to have some sort of outage while they're doing a switchover or something, just know that you'll be notified a couple weeks in advance so you can prepare for it, but that shouldn't be an issue. We're doing everything we can to avoid that. Truck hauling, as I mentioned, we have a lot of sheet pile that we're going to be installing in the ground. There'll be the hauling for that, and then once we're doing the excavation of the material within the channel, we'll be taking that out. So expect to see quite a few trucks. The good news is, though, we'll be doing that in off-peak hours, so hopefully we're not impacting traffic too much. So how can you stay informed about the project? There's a trident of ways that you can stay informed on this. One is just pay attention to the website. It's there on the screen, ocpublicworks.com, EGGW. You can email us at projectinfo right there. If you email us, feel free to send us questions, comments, concerns. That's a great way to get a hold of us. Also, if you would like to be a part of a stakeholder list, just so that you stay informed. Go ahead and email us at that, and we'll add you to our stakeholder list. The other way is, obviously, you can call us and then follow us on our social media channels. It's 2020, even the government's doing social media. So follow us on there. Shannon will be uploading great photos and keeping people informed that way. And then the fifth way, actually, is the project information signs. When we are about to start construction, you'll notice project information signs popping up along the channel, and that'll have contact information as well that you can get a hold of the project management team or the construction management team. So through all of those, you'll be able to get a hold of us. And with that, we're moving into the question and answer portion of it, and I'll hand it back to Shannon, who will be our moderator.
Thank you, Justin. So everyone, a lot of good information there. Overview of the project, a lot of what you'll see out there when the project actually kicks off next month. Project work hours, the equipment you'll see, so a lot of activity going on. But we just want to reiterate, this is not the only time you'll be hearing from us, and we want to keep this a dialogue with you near the project site out in the community, which is why we had those communication channels available. So tonight is not the only night we want to hear from you. We want to keep that conversation going. We'd love to hear from you at any time if you have any questions or concerns as the project starts and then throughout the life of the project. As Justin said, we're going to be here through summer of 2022. And to reiterate, the entire project is not going to be in one location. That entire duration will be moved along the channel location. But we want to continue hearing from you, and we'll be committed to providing you updates as well. So we're going to go and kick off with the question and answer session. Again, you have that slide on the screen, so this is a reminder for those who might have joined late or might not have written down how you can ask a question or provide a comment. So there's various options. You could type a question or comment in the Q&A box. We'll monitor for those. You can also raise a hand. Either click the three dots in that black circle, you'll see raise hand, or there'll be a small right hand in the bottom right corner of your screen. So either of those two options as well. And if you called in, you could dial *3. Any of those options you see on the screen. For those who called in, obviously you're not looking at a screen. If you're only on the phone, you dial *3. So we'll go ahead.
Okay, so the first question we have is in the Q&A from Mary Frank. States, my wife and I have a fully permitted and approved guest house in our backyard, approximately 30 feet from the construction site as it passes by. What do I do if there is stucco, window, or other damage as a result of the vibration?
Mary, thanks for the question. So when you get the notification for the pre-construction survey, I suggest taking advantage of that, and they'll come in and they'll photo document everything. And that way, you're protected, and if there is damage, these companies that accomplish this work are super detailed, and so they'll photograph everything, and if there is any kind of damage, then it'll be evident in the photos, and we'll be able to take care of that for you.
The next question is from Anthony Chavez. Will you be utilizing automated metering technology to monitor the levels of your drainage, specifically the landside drainage and the water storage tank, and monitoring for the channel itself?
Yeah, thanks for the question. No, there won't be an automated monitoring system on the landside drainage. It's a passive system, and so the way it works is the storage chambers will fill up into a certain level, and then once they get to a high enough level, they'll just start overflowing into the channel itself. We'll continue with our operations and maintenance storm patrol activities as well. So through both of those actions, we should be significantly improving that problem.
Okay, the next question is from Victoria Alberti. Do you put up any type of tarps along our chain link fence? Those of us that are adjacent to the canal.
So during construction, we mentioned dust control is an item that we're supremely concerned about. And so, yeah, it's pretty typical in our construction projects that we'll install dust screening along it. There's kind of a multitude of different property line fences, and so if you're at one of the properties that has only the chain link fence and there isn't a wooden fence there and there's not a block wall there, then there's a good chance we'll put a dust control fence there. The way that looks, it's just kind of a screening. You see them all over the place at construction sites, and it helps block the dust.
Next question is from John Bowden. Where will the work start, and does it flow in any direction?
Yeah, thanks for the question, John. That sequencing slide that we put up earlier, it's going to follow these numbers. So it'll go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. And this presentation we'll make available on our website. And then if you would like a copy, we can shoot you a PDF. Just email the project info email address, and we can shoot you a copy directly.
Thanks, John. Next question is from Tim Gerarha. Sorry, I apologize if I mispronounced that. Will the current short wire fence be rebuilt? Will the current issue I have with mud flowing into my property every time it rains be fixed? And then in addition to that, I am concerned about the noise as I am a teacher and will be doing online teaching. My 2 children are also doing online college, and I'm concerned about the noise level.
Great questions, Kim. The fencing will be replaced along the property line. That is part of our project. Anytime we do these improvement projects, then we take advantage of being in the area because we like to just touch it and then do our improvements and then walk away and try to not impact our adjacent residents that much. So the fencing is going to be replaced. And then the mud flowing into the property every time it rains. So yeah, we've touched on that a couple times. That landside drainage is going to be significantly improved.
Thanks, Kim. I'm going to hop.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
She also asked the question about the noise. So, you know, we talked about the Geekin machine and how quiet it is. We're going to install the sound barriers around the cement plant for the soil mixing facilities. We're doing everything we can. We'll definitely be monitoring it. And then what I'd say is if there is an issue with noise when we're working in that area around your house, definitely reach out to us and we'll do whatever we can to make it work with you.
Thanks for the questions, Kim. I'm going to hop over to the phone. I have one hand raised from Roger. Roger, I'm going to unmute you now, and you should be free to speak. So everyone should be able to hear you now.
Hi, I'm Roger Quintal. Anyway, I was wondering, what are the decibel levels on the geyser? And you said something about a fence between after you get done or during the period of time of the construction. Are you going to put up some kind of fencing on after, you know, for permanent fencing on the flood control side, even though I have a fence already?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Roger. So for the noise, unfortunately, I don't have the decibels right offhand. However, these machines, when you look at our standard state guidelines on noise, that's typically monitored at a distance of 50 feet, and the threshold is in like the 60 decibel range, something like that, and these machines are well below that. If you want to email the project information email address, then I can get you definitive answers on that. I apologize, I don't have that offhand. When it comes to the fencing, we're replacing our chain link fence. If you have your own fence there, it won't be impacted at all. If there's a block wall at the property line, we may or may not put fencing back at that particular location. But something like a wooden fence or these vinyl fences that are installed commonly now, we'll go ahead and put our property line fence back up, but you wouldn't be impacted.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Charlene. During the soil preparation period, how much noise can we anticipate?
Yeah, so Charlene, that's a great question. After we install the sound barriers, I'm not sure how much noise is going to be propagating out. We're actually taking a unique approach to the project where the soil mixing facility itself is going to be staged. We're going to be building up a work pad within the channel. And so we're going to be spacing that as far away from the channel, or sorry, as far away from the property line as we can. Just know, obviously, the auger bit that does the drilling, that goes down the middle of the levee, so that will be close to the properties. But if you want specific detailed numbers, we can provide that to you. Just email us and we can put that information together. In general, though, all of our noise, all of the thresholds established by the state for noise pollution we're going to be well below those thresholds.
Thank you, Charlene. The next question is from Victoria. While the work is being done, how are you going to prevent mud flowing into our yard during the rain season? Last winter, the rain came down the dirt hill and flooded our pool with mud. That happened after the county took away all the plant material.
Okay, thanks for the question, Victoria. So one thing that we have to do on every one of our project sites is that we have to meet the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, otherwise known as NPDES. So we have to create something for that that's called a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And as regulated by the state, we're not allowed to discharge anything from the site. So we'll be installing silt fencing, gravel bags, things like that to prevent soil from transmitting out of our project site. So that shouldn't be an issue. We'll have a lot of monitoring in place and doing our best to eliminate that. And if there is an issue, then most definitely we want to hear from you. Odds are our inspectors will have already picked it up before you contact us, but that is a concern of ours, and we look to eliminate it.
Thanks, Victoria. The next question is from Diane. We noticed on the completed portion that there has been landscape planted. Will you also be planting some trees along the fence?
That's a good question, Diane. This project, so one of the things that I mentioned was the improved operations and maintenance. And so I'm going to touch on that. And then the other element is I'm going to touch on the partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers. So on the downstream project, you're correct, we installed some trees. Some of that are water quality features and some of it is screening. And the primary purpose for the screening was because there's an active trail that takes you from Graham Street down to the Bolsa Chica area. And so we wanted to be able to screen the residents from the trail users. This project site is not going to be open as a trail, so we don't have that problem. The maintenance road itself is going to be widened because we've learned from the previous project that we need a little bit better access, so we're adding a little bit of width. When we're doing that, we're reducing the land side space, the space between the levee and the property line fence a little bit. And so when we narrow that, we don't have the ability to maintain vegetation in between the property line and the levee. So there's those couple elements, but the major element is that the Army Corps of Engineers has a levee vegetation policy that doesn't allow for vegetation within 15 feet of the toe of a levee. This project, since it's a element of the Westminster watershed study, and we've gotten a memorandum of understanding from the Army Corps of Engineers that we'll be able to build this as long as we build it to meet Army Corps standards, then we'll be able to get credit for this project on our future federal project. So in order to meet the Army Corps of Engineers standards, we can't put any vegetation down in that area because it wouldn't meet the vegetation policy. So I guess the follow-up question from that is, well, what about the downstream? So that's going to have to be visited with the Army Corps once the watershed study is fully authorized and appropriated. We may be having to make modifications to that downstream section to meet Army Corps standards.
Thank you, Diane. Next question is from Kim. We have noticed an increase in rats in Sierra Mobile Estates. What type of support and abatement will be done to help prevent more rats from coming into our neighborhood when you dig up the flood channel?
That is a good question. And I think what I'll need to do is provide you a better answer than what I can do right now. In general, I think the rats fall in the category of our operations and maintenance team. Also, vector control is the primary combatant of those. So Kim, if you could email, because I don't want to ask you to post your contact information within the Q&A. So if I could ask you to do me a favor and email us that same question to the project information email address, then we'll get you a good answer for that on exactly what you can do.
Thank you, Kim. The next question is from Victoria. You just answered about the tarps. We are one of the properties that are only chain link. We will have no privacy and have dust concerns.
Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, part of the standard, we mentioned the stormwater prevention, pollution prevention plan. One of the standard approaches in those stormwater pollution prevention plans is eliminating dust, because not only is dust an annoyance from water quality or air quality standpoint, it's also a water quality issue. So we can't have dust blowing from the site into the channel, and we don't want it to go the other way either. So in the room here with me is my colleague from JF Shea, that's our contractor, and he's taking diligent notes. So this is something that we'll be addressing during construction.
Thanks, Victoria. The next question is from Steve. Will the county-owned chain link fence that runs the length of the property be replaced and possibly raised higher? And will there be any trees or shrubs to aesthetically enhance the sheet piles?
Thanks for the question, Steve. You know, I think we touched on this already. The chain link fence will be replaced. There's only a handful of spots where it wouldn't be. As I mentioned, that's going to be in areas where there's existing block walls. We may not do fence against the wall there. But the fencing is all going to be replaced. The height is a standard for the county. That's designated through our standards for the flood control district. So the height won't be changed at all. Aesthetically, we talked about the trees and the shrubbery and the challenges that we have in doing something like that. So in general, there isn't going to be any substantial aesthetic improvements. However, if you only have a chain link fence there, then maybe we can look into some kind of screening or something on a case-by-case basis. But as a general project element for the entire project reach, there isn't going to be any of that in the landside area.
Thank you, Steve. And then Kim just posted a comment. Thank you. That's wonderful to hear about the fence being rebuilt. I appreciate your information and transparency. Thank you very much, Kim. Next question is from Rob. How much taller will the new structure be versus the current berm? How far will the new structure be from the property line? I'm on Shields. I back up to the channel. Thanks
for the question, Rob. So I'm going to just speak in general terms. If you want exact numbers, we're happy to provide that to you. We can get as detailed as you want as far as the engineering goes. So in general terms, the levee height itself is going to be more or less the same. The sheet pile height is going to be higher than the existing levee, but The backside sheet pile is going to be roughly the same elevation as the levee that's there now. Again, just speaking in general terms. As far as how far is the new structure going to be from the property line? So the land side sheet pile is going to be about 6 feet from the property line in most cases. So it is going to be quite a bit closer. Well, one of the features that we implement as part of this project, though, is that the land side sheet pile is installed at a lower elevation than the channel side, because we want to be able to provide as much view corridor as possible. So we've done as much as we can from the engineering standpoint to be able to accommodate that. It will, I mean, we showed you the renderings, though. It is going to be closer to the property line, and it's going to be very similar to what was installed downstream from a visual look. So if you go look at what's downstream of Warner, that's pretty much what to expect.
Thank you, Rob. Next question is from Charlene. I live in the mobile home park. Did I understand correctly that our cinder block walls may not be replaced if they are damaged?
No, apologies if I wasn't clear on that. Any damage that takes place to adjacent property during construction, we will be taking care of. So if you have a block wall that's on the property line and we do something that damages it, we will be making you whole and we will be taking care of that.
Thank you, Charlene. Next is from Victoria. Approximately how much space will there be between the property line and the levee? And if you aren't planting any plants along there, we are stuck looking at the ugly metal wall instead of green.
Thanks for the question, Victoria. Yeah, so we just discussed that. It's about 6 feet. As far as the aesthetics, apologies if it's not something that you're going to appreciate. Just know that you are getting the benefit of flood protection, and so I hope that lessens that blow a little bit. And I would encourage you to consider landscaping opportunities within your property so you could control how it looks, to your desire. I don't know that you necessarily want me or any other engineer choosing what kind of landscaping we put back there. It might not match your preferences. So apologies if you're not looking forward to that. Just know that the flood protection is a huge benefit of the project.
Thank you, Victoria. And Kim will follow up with you. And her other question is, will the chain link fence be replaced first?
No, the chain link fence will be one of the features that's done towards the later phases of the project. The first phases are going to be installing the sheet pile, installing the soil mixing. Then towards the end of the project, we'll be doing that chain link fence. And the reason why we do it that way is because we don't want to install a bunch of fence and then accidentally damage it and then have to fix it. So if we're going to, in the bad opportunity or in a situation where we make a mistake and we damage the fence, we'd much rather damage one that we're going to be pulling out instead of a brand new one that we just installed.
Thank you, Kim. Next question is from Victoria. Hopefully this is the last question. If we are in phase 5 and 6, approximately when does that work start?
Yeah, so I'm sorry for the pause. I'm looking at the contractor. We're thinking this is going to be in the spring. So Victoria, if you want to send us that question to the email address, we'll be able to provide you a more exact answer of when we're planning on being down in that 5 and 6 area. But I'm seeing some head nods from JFJ here that it's going to be in the springtime is when you should plan on that starting up.
Thanks, Victoria. Next question is from Kim. So are you saying it will be just another short chain link fence? That will not help with the mud drainage at all. It is also too low. We've had issues with homeless people and coyotes easily jumping over it into the mobile home park.
Okay, we'll take that into account for sure. Yeah, the chain link fence, I'm not sure the elevation of the existing fence now. Our standard is to install a 5-foot barrier. I know that in some of these areas there was a 5-foot tall fence installed back in the day, but then due to erosion of the levee itself, maybe it's not 5 feet anymore. So after we complete our project, it'll definitely be up to that height. As far as the mud goes, I think I haven't adequately described the drainage system, but all of that mud is going to be gone post-construction. In its place, we're going to have a pervious like gravel material. And so in a rare situation where a storm event overwhelms that local drainage system, and if it overwhelms the overflow system that's supposed to take it into the channel, if there's any water that starts going towards the adjacent properties, it's not going to be laden with sediment because all the sediment is going to be capped with a thick layer of this like pervious gravel material. So the mud issue should be a non-issue whatsoever. With regard to homeless and access issues, that's definitely something that we would be interested in hearing about. From our just operations standpoint, that's something we don't want happening. So if there is a situation where we have coyotes or if there's a homeless situation, we need to know about that, and then we can take care of that from a, you know, on a case-by-case basis. It might make more sense to put a taller fence in, but for right now, the plan is to install the standard fence.
The next question is kind of related to Kim's. What will be done to secure the area from any homeless encampments?
That's a good question. This is Shannon. This is a question we get throughout the county, and it's nothing new to us at Orange County Public Works because we maintain about 380 miles of channels throughout the county, so that's a question we get often. We do address those issues with those individuals who are encamped out there daily, if not weekly. We address it quickly. We have our operations and maintenance crews who monitor our flood channels throughout the week. We do that regularly, not only for trash and debris, but also to see if there's illegal activity, illegal presence, or any homeless individuals. We do work hand in hand with either county sheriff's department or local police, depending on whose jurisdiction it is. So we do have a program in place. We work regularly with those local law enforcement homeless outreach teams to try to not only assist those individuals, try to connect them with helpful resources to help them out, but we address those quickly, work with law enforcement, and our maintenance crews go in there to clean up those channel sites. So we do keep an eye on those. If you or any of your neighbors do see such activity or presence out there, you can go to our online portal. It's myoceservices.ocgov.com. That's myoceservices.ocgov.com. That's our online portal where you could report those online at any time, 24/7, or you could contact us through any of those channels that we provided here, whether it's the email or that phone number. So that's something we definitely take serious and we address quickly. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Kim and Steve. Next question is from Kim. Why can't a cinder block wall be built instead of a chain link fence, as that would prevent the mud issue?
Thanks, Kim. You know, hopefully the description of the drainage system that we're installing on that backside there that I went through a second ago will explain kind of what's going on back there and how that mud shouldn't be an issue post-project, because it's all going to be eliminated and covered up with this gravel pervious system. So that shouldn't be a problem. And I guess I just want to say, like, I hear you, the mud is a problem, we know about it, and we're looking to solve it. That's been one of the primary objectives of the project from the beginning.
Thanks, Kim. Next question is from Victoria. Half of our yard is the old 4-foot fence that we have attached vinyl fence to it. Will they leave that and put new fence or replace and then we have to reattach our vinyl? Second part of the question in the next Q&A box. Our other half of our yard is an 8-foot chain link in perfect shape. Will they leave that?
Okay, so anything, thank you for asking this question. Anything that you have attached to the county's fence, you should remove if you want to keep it. When they come in, when we get to the point that we're removing fencing, anything that's attached to our fence will be taken to the recycle center as well. So anything that's attached that you want to keep, please remove it. And then with regard to the second half of your question, as far as differing barrier heights of the fencing, you know, all the fencing is being removed and it's all going to be placed back with a uniform fencing system, I guess is the way I'll describe it. So you shouldn't have issues with like a 4-foot fence and an 8-foot fence. It's all going to be uniform, standard height.
And then Rob just posted a comment, says, thank you for the excellent presentation. Thank you for attending. And I believe that is all the questions I have. I'll put up the question box one more time if anyone wants to raise their hand and make any few last comments. We'll leave the line open for a few minutes here if anything comes to mind. Oh, a couple more questions. I apologize, I didn't scroll all the way down. From Victoria, I want to thank you for being patient with my questions. I'm going to email you my address, and I have a couple of other questions. We look forward to hearing from you. And it says, we see too many homeless in the canal.
Yeah, we kind of see too many of it everywhere. It's something as a society, hopefully we can address.
And I have a hand raised from our Chief Engineer, Khalid. I'm going to unmute you now.
Thank you, Melissa and team. I really appreciate you guys taking the time and doing this. I would like to send a message to the residents that you know, our team has done everything they can to make your this construction project tolerable for you guys, and we want to try to work with you in future. So please get in touch with. Obviously, we'll provide you all the numbers and contact information of our contractor. We have a great contractor and a great relationship with them. And this is a partnership. We want to try to get this thing done without a lot of heartburn. So feel free to give us a call, get in touch with my team, and we're happy to help you. If you see something out there that doesn't make sense, please pick up the phone or send us an email. Thank you.
Thank you, Khalid. Yeah, just to reiterate that, I mean, here at the county, we're here to serve the public. You guys are our client, and so we definitely want to hear from you, and we work to accommodate requests as much as we can. So thank you for that, Khalid.
All right.
That appears to be all the questions we received. Again, I can't echo our team's sentiments enough. Thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your busy schedules. We know daily lives are challenging with COVID-19 and the challenges you have every day, and taking time out of the evening away from your family. So we truly appreciate it. That's one of our pillars of importance, is hearing from you in the community. And again, we're looking to be out there starting next month, but tonight is not the last time we want to hear from you or that you'll be hearing from us. So again, the contact information is up on the screen, or if you did call in, you can visit www.ocpublicworks.eggw. So that's the project website. If you called in, you're not seeing the presentation. So please stay in touch, and please expect some more information and notifications within a few weeks as we start to mobilize out in the community. So again, thank you very much on behalf of our team. Thank you for being here and participating, and for your great questions and comments. Thank you.